Good morning, everyone. A very warm welcome to this hybrid meeting of the Civic Licensing Committee, where I'd like to remind all attendees that this meeting is being recorded and webcast live on the Council's YouTube channel. I'd like to remind all attendees to mute their microphones whilst not speaking. Unless they wish to speak, they should do so by raising their hands remotely. Can I also remind members attending hybrid meetings where quasi-judicial matters are being considered that they are not permitted to participate by audio only and must have their camera and video functions switched on at all times. Just before we move on to the main business, I'd like to remind members that a UK parliamentary by-election is currently underway in part of the Angus Council area. The Council must remain politically impartial and must not be seen to promote or to favour any political party or candidate, and members are therefore asked to bear this in mind during all discussions and decision makings. So as we move on to item number 1, apologies for absence. Do we have any for today? Thank you.
Yes, Convener, we've got apologies from Councillor Louise Nicholl. Today we have Councillor Durno, Councillor Gavin Nicholl and Councillor Jill Scott joining us remotely, and the rest of the members are in the chamber. Convener.
Thank you very much. Item number 2, declarations of interest and statements of transparency. Do we have any from any members? No, I see no hands. Thank you very much. So item number 3 are the minutes. So the first of the previous meetings, this is being submitted for approval as a correct record. The minute of the meeting of this committee on the 14th of May 2026. Is this agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. And B, the Public Procession Subcommittee. This is subject for noting the minute of the meeting of the Public Procession Subcommittee on the 12th of May 2026. Is this noted? Thank you very much. Item number 4 is delegated approvals, and this is report number 16626, and it is recommended that the committee note that the licence is granted for renewal under delegate authority as attached in the appendix. Are we happy to agree that?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Item number 5 is the new applications for a house of multiple occupancy, and this is report number 16726. And we will start with the first one, which is SKM Property 1 Limited, and this is 45 High Street, Montrose. We have a Mr. Mark Bowman attending online. Are you there, Mr. Bowman?
Good morning, guys. Hope you can hear me okay.
Thank you. I just need to make sure that your video is switched on so that we can see you, please.
Just turning it on now. There we go.
Great, thank you very much. So I'll give you the opportunity to talk us through your application. So the floor is yours. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So this is my first time doing something kind of similar to this. So please bear with me if there's anything that I do miss. Just obviously feel free to ask me. Just before I start, I just would like to put on record that David Dewar within the council has been actually really helpful with me on this and very patient. So just if that means anything, I thought it worth documenting. So a bit about myself. I trained as a lawyer, moved into chartered accountancy before moving into the property industry. The business that I'm affiliated with, BLK, we've got our own in-house letting agency, and but started as a portfolio landlord before commencing with the lettings agency and things like that. So everything's all sort of self-managed. The property in High Street was bought as part of a portfolio of 6. All 6 were bought under the auspices of operating as existing HMOs, which is, I'll come on to in terms of the latter conversations I've had with David Dewar. 4 properties in Glasgow, Glasgow's West End, 1 in Paisley, and then 1 in Montrose. The property in Montrose, 45 High Street, was bought vacant, and it remains vacant. There's quite a lot of work to be carried out in there as far as the refurbishment's concerned. Full new boiler and things like that to go into all the kind of remaining compliance based on the HMO types of things. So that still remains vacant since we purchased it last July. In terms of the application itself, we're not going to be changing anything to do with the floor plan. There's no any alterations to the structural kind of elements of the property. It will just be a full kind of internal refurb as far as ripping it out and like new walls and flooring, paint and decoration, furniture and all that kind of thing. As far as other things that I think might be relevant, we've been operating the 4 properties or the 5 properties down here as HMOs. They're fully tenanted. So we've kind of dealt with the fire safety, all that kind of stuff. As I say, with the letting agency, it is all self-managed. So relatively well versed in HMOs since we got involved in them last July. Bit of a baptism of fire, but we're there now. And I caught up with David and one of David's colleagues yesterday, just as far as sort of documentation that remains outstanding. As far as in conjunction with the full refurb kind of process that's going to be ongoing, which we're sort of managing remotely to start with. So we're organising contractors and things up there. So yeah, I don't know if there's maybe anything that I have missed in there for the councillors and things, but if there is anything, just feel free to ask.
Thank you very much. So we'll move to questions from members. So Councillor Clark.
Good morning again, convener and colleagues. Mr. Bowman, that was some little testimonial there, very well done. Just thinking in terms of what's involved here, we are duty bound to look at all the paperwork and everything, and for our statutorial professionals, we obviously pay great heed to what's written. And it would appear at the time of the reading of this that there are still insufficient issues being addressed, and building standards therefore can't approve the HMO application. So just where are you standing with that at this time, please?
So where we're standing, so that was well, firstly, thanks for saying that. I feel a bit better now. So in terms of the documentation and things like that, it's one of my business partners is he's sort of not dealing with it all together, but he's responsible for it because he's got serviced accommodation properties and a service accommodation business based on from Edinburgh sort of up towards the northeast. So as far as a paperwork element is concerned, the documents that I've sent that have been not rejected as such, but more information has been asked for us to do with the floor plans. So I got that information, that was either Tuesday or Wednesday now. So that's what I'm actively working on at the minute. And the position was to determine whether at what point I had to put the certificate, not the certificate of compliance, the display for public notice to get the certificate of compliance. So it was really kind of being completely honest, me trying to work out which order things had to be done in. And again, for the sake of being totally transparent, because I've been dealing with the HMO applications for different councils, everyone operates a bit differently. Certainly not an excuse, again, being completely honest. Some applications aren't considered until payments made. Some applications aren't considered until all the documentations are in. I've been asked for tenancy agreements and all that kind of stuff. So as far as the kind of compliance element of it, it absolutely categorically will be done because my colleagues know that I'm having this meeting today, and effectively I've kind of shirked them to say, well, I'm going on to a meeting that if one of the professionals tells me that something's not done, I can only agree with them because it hasn't. So so I can assure you that it is the top of my priority list because effectively I've got a property that's been sitting empty for, well, it'll be coming up for a year now in terms of my ownership of it. But it'll be more than that based on the previous ownership. So that also has to be dealt with on its own merits. But one other thing I wanted to say as well, if you don't mind, is, and again, it's just a conversation for a different day with other people, but we bought this property under the auspices that it had operated as a HMO in the past. So we actually thought that it was going to be a renewal licence. Conversations with David Dewar, it transpires that wasn't the case. So we basically submitted a HMO application for a property, as I say, that we thought was already licensed. So that's something that we're dealing with between our lawyers and the seller's lawyers, because there has been a bit of skullduggery, for want of a better term. So again, just for the sake of transparency, I don't know what I should say and what I wouldn't, but that would be my kind of submissions there.
I would beg that you would allow me a supplementary, please. Mr. Bowman, the most important thing for me, apart from encouragement of HMOs, not in general, we don't do that, this is what's in front of me today.
Yeah.
But people's safety has to be paramount to me. So when we read something like that, we really you've given a very fulsome, please don't feel nervous because you're doing well. You've given a fulsome answer, but project management, etc., in one of these things makes a big difference. You need to be able to get your ducks in a row. So if there's safety involved, that's where I feel very uncomfortable. But you're doing well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to pass over to legal for just one moment.
Thank you. With respect to the certificate of compliance, and you've indicated that that has not yet been provided, if I could just indicate to members that without the certificate of compliance, evidence hasn't been provided to us that the application has been duly notified, i.e. that a notice has, we haven't received confirmation that the notice has actually been displayed to allow members of the public to object or submit responses.
Thank you. Councillor Meakin and then Councillor Brace.
Thank you, Convener. Just to check out, I'm having a look at the recommendations. There seems to be, obviously bits missing here, but there doesn't seem to be an option to defer this to a later date. Is there an option? I mean, there are only three: grant, grant and refuse.
Sorry, apologies, I'll need to check that. It hasn't come to me before, and I'll need to check the legislation with respect to that.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Sorry, Councillor Brace, questions for the applicant?
I just don't think there's anything like enough information for me to be able to make a decision to grant this on what we have here. And well, I want to hear what Ms Burns has to say now.
So we do have an update from Building Standards, which we'll move on to in just a moment. So I just want to see, are there any further questions on the applicant from what he said so far? No? There's no hands at the moment. In that case, I'll move over to Building Standards for an update from themselves.
Thank you, Convener. In light of what Mr Bowman has just told everybody, we're not much further forward, unfortunately. We do require the basic information to check the application against the statutory guidance. So just to explain to members today that would include things like space standards, how many beds are in rooms. We don't know any of this information yet. Electrical supplies, how many cookers, fridges. There's many things that we check against the statutory guidance. At the moment, we have so little, we can't do that, and would still have to carry out an inspection against the plans that we do receive. So, yeah, unfortunately, I think it's just a wee bit early for us to be able to support this application.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for Building Standards based upon that? No. Okay, thank you. I'm going to hand over to Jenny.
Thank you, Convener. Yes, the application was received in April, and there is therefore time for the matter to be deferred for future consideration.
Councillor Clark.
Notwithstanding what my colleagues might say, Convener, but to give everything a good chance here, I think the only thing that we can ask for is a deferral. And what we've said earlier.
Just before we get to that, I'm going to give the opportunity for the applicant to sum up and then we can move on to that bit. So.
With respect to the certificate of compliance, it may be worth considering that at an early stage, because if the implications of that are that without that we haven't been provided with certification that the application has been properly, that notice of the application has properly been given, so that members of the public haven't, or have members of the public been given an opportunity to object or submit responses to the application. It's possible for members, for example, to require that notice, at this stage, that a notice is displayed.
So can I just ask a bit of guidance here then, given to what the legal person has just said there, Jenny, the certificate of compliance is obviously paramount. Can we still go for a deferral then, with that included, that must be done initially?
Yes, members can indeed do that. That may be a reason to defer.
And that then I would move that we do that, given what our legal representative has just told us, and I would seek a seconder.
Councillor Breeze.
Sorry, I'm not quite at that stage yet. How long would be required for a deferral so that we can sit here with a full set of plans and drawings and all the information we need? How long is that going to take our team at Angus Council, and how long is it going to take the applicant to do that? Are they going to be able to have it done? Are we confident that they can have it done in time for the next meeting? And is that going to fit in with the notice required for the certificate of compliance?
It may be that the applicant is able to provide information at this time which might affect the length of time, i.e. whether or not the notice does actually have to be, a notice has to be displayed for the requisite 21 days. The applicant did refer to certificate of compliance, but unfortunately I didn't pick up the full comment with that regard. But the notice, if a further notice is required, then it would require to be displayed for 21 days, and then. Yeah.
Thank you. Is there anything else anyone would like to bring up before I move back to the applicant? No. And that, Councillor Breeze?
Yeah, could I hear from Building Standards? Can this be done and progressed in time for the next meeting of this committee, which is in August, isn't it? Is that a reasonable timescale?
Yeah, it's certainly reasonable for us. If depending on how long it takes the applicant to get the information to us, I mean, we could turn the whole thing around within a week, so it's very doable.
That's great, thanks.
Thank you. Is there anything from anyone else? No, I see no hands. In that case, I'll move back to the applicant. Mr. Bowman, if you'd like to take this opportunity to sum up, answer any points that have been raised before we go for motions. Thank you.
No worries. So just to thank everybody for their comments there. Just one other point that I should have mentioned before, if it kind of helps any judgment without adding something at the last minute, is the reason that the HMO licence application was submitted as early as it was, and by early I mean the fact that the property is still to go through quite a considerable refurbishment, as I say, with the new boiler installation and all that kind of thing, fire doors and all that, is I was obligated to do that by the solicitors of the firm who we borrowed the money from. So for the financial services institution, they mandated that I had to submit a HMO licence application. They knew that the property was vacant. They knew that there was a significant refurbishment. It was them that they carried out a valuation of their own instruction, or a valuation or survey, whatever way you want to look at it. So they knew that it wasn't going to be tenanted. So again, I can only apologise that the HMO licence application was submitted as early as it was, because effectively the property isn't ready to even be close to be like rented out on that basis, irrespective of whether a licence is granted or not. So that's something that I would offer. As far as the timescales and things like that, I'm basically going to use the contents of this meeting to almost shirk my colleagues that are responsible for it, to say, right, here's what needs to happen now. Like this is, it's been deferred, it's been rejected, whatever may happen. This is what the contents need to be. So again, I know this is recorded and things like that. So I'm absolutely happy to put on record that the documentation that people require will be provided in a timeous fashion. If anything comes off the back of that, that will also be provided. And also, just for comfort as well, I know I'd mentioned about everything being self-managed and us being based in Glasgow. We will be instructing a management agent who's local to the area for things like emergency contacts and plumbers and all the kind of trade element of it as well. So we certainly won't be managing from down here. It will be managed in a more local region. But yeah, everything that needs to be submitted in terms of the display notice, then the certificate of compliance, the stuff to building standards, I can absolutely assure you that it will be done, because it has to be done. So, yep.
Thank you very much. I shall open up to members for motions. Councillor Clark.
Nothing much to add to what I said earlier. I have to thank the applicant for making things so clear, but I would ask, in everybody's interest, you can't do anything today. It has to be, well, I would contend that it needs to be deferred, and given this, it's certainly about the certificate of compliance. That's basic stuff that needs to be, and then we look at safety, etc.
Thank you. Councillor Speed, did you?
Yeah, it was just to say I agree. We need to. Unfortunately, Mr. Bowman, the application just isn't ready. We certainly wouldn't be able to progress and on the basis of the information that we don't, have.
Yep.
So.
Okay, so we have a motion from Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Speed, and just to confirm a time frame, is it till the next suitable date rather than a specific date?
ASAP. Okay.
Councillor Speed.
Would we not just be deferring this to the next meeting of this committee?
Yes.
Okay, so your motion is to defer this until the next meeting of the committee, which is the 20th of August. So just, okay, so the next meeting is the 20th of August. However, just to bear in mind, obviously, the papers need to be put out 2 weeks prior to that. So is that going to be a sufficient amount of time? Councillor Whiteside?
Yeah, I don't know if it would be a mistake to specify a specific date, because the application should come forward when it's ready, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I guess if the application comes forward when it's ready, and then we just look to then see what it fits in with in terms of this committee's timetable, would that be?
Councillor Meakin?
I'll just check with committee services or legal. If we defer, do we not have to give a date that it's deferred to, or can we leave it open?
No, it's my understanding that no, it isn't required to give a date.
I think Councillor Meakin, for an application for an HMO, if it's not determined within 1 year, it shall be deemed granted. So this application was received on the 9th of April. So strictly speaking, we have until the 9th of April, well, the 8th of April 2027. But of course, we wouldn't want it to go on that length of time. But I think if the papers was all ready by the time I was ready to issue the papers for August, we could certainly look to put it to the August one. If not, it would be the one following that.
I wonder if it may be appropriate to delegate authority to the clerk to submit at a relevant time, i.e. to appoint the committee to which it should return.
Agreed.
So you're happy to agree that, Councillor Clark, and seconded by Councillor Speed. Any changes to that, or are we minded to go with that? Okay, thank you very much. So it's deferred under delegation to committee services as to when to bring it back. Okay. Understand all that, Mr. Bowen?
Yeah, thanks very much, guys.
Yeah, great. We'll be in touch. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. In this case, we will now move on to the next one, which is South Sea Ozil 64 Millgate Loan in Arbroath. And we have the applicant here with us in person, Mr. Harry Attlee. If you'd like to come forward, please. Thank you. Good morning. So this is your application, your opportunity to speak to your application. So please take us through. Thank you.
First of all, thank you for everyone's time looking at the application today. Just quickly about myself. It's myself and my mum who's with me. We have a property business. We recently relocated to Glasgow for that business, and we've been building it for the last coming up to 5 years now. Our sort of mission is to provide affordable housing to those that need it, because there is quite a housing shortage at the moment, especially you know, in Scotland and the wider UK, where people can't afford to move out of their parents' home, or they can't afford to just live in general. So in respect of an HMO, that kind of ticks all of those boxes, because it's affordable, fixed accommodation for people that need it. So I do have a representation that I've prepared. Unfortunately, it wasn't circulated, but I've been told before the committee started just to read it out, so that's what I'm going to do. And then we'll go from there. So property background and history. 64 Millgate Loan was originally run as a hotel in the latter half of the 1900s. And in July 2005, planning was granted for the erection of a dwelling house, now called 64A, on land that was previously owned by 64. The previous owners of 64 took ownership in 2007, and shortly thereafter, a house of multiple occupation application was granted on the 27th of July 2007, where it ran for many years. The house was subsequently used as a foster care home from December 2016 onwards until the operators vacated, which we believe was sometime in 2018. And from that point, it was unoccupied, and the property was occupied by an illegal cannabis farm that was raided by the fire brigade in 2023, and subsequently the police. Following this, the property lay dormant with a lot of antisocial behaviour from local youngsters that would break into the property, smash windows, throw eggs and spray paint on the walls. The local residents around the property, when we took possession of it, informed us that the police was frequently called, and eventually the house was thankfully boarded up, which was causing quite an eyesore to the local community. We, as the current owners, purchased the property at auction in a sad state with the hopes to revive it and re-establish the property as a well-run HMO. Unfortunately, the previous owner allowed the property to become quite run down and poorly managed. We even heard rumours of it being run for illegal prostitution prior to the cannabis farm. So a bit about Arbroath town. Arbroath is a seaside town that has been named as being in the top 10% of deprived Scottish towns. The high street is deeply deprived, and the town is full of dilapidated housing and commercial property due to lack of investment and community sentiment over the years, which is really sad to see. It needs companies and individuals like ours to take these properties and provide new life to them, and over time the town will regenerate. However, if proposals such as this one are rejected, it runs the risk of not only depriving the community of additional housing, but of deterring investors and developers from investing in the town in the future. It's unfortunate how many local properties have been used to harbour drug farms. Funnily enough, our gas engineer's father rented out a pub that they owned to find out that in a matter of weeks of renting it out, it was full to the brim of cannabis and had to be raided by the police. This seems to be a frequent occurrence and is unfortunate that 64 Millgate Loan also suffered that fate for many years until it was ultimately discovered in 2023. Now onto the actual application. I just got a little bit of housekeeping. We'd just like to confirm to the committee here today that the building does comply with the building standards compliance queries raised by the department. The issue is that the drawings themselves don't specify the specific requirements because the guidance provided by the Scottish Government, which Angus Council refers to on their website, doesn't specify that the drawings need to have these things on there, but we're working on having all of the individual building standard requirements on the drawings, but the property does comply. And I just also need to stress that the, which page is it? I don't think this is numbered anyway, but the first page of the report 167/26, it says an application from South Sea Ozell for house multiple occupation license 64 Brigade Loan was processed by Business and Customer Support on the 27th of April. The application received is comprising of 17 rooms. That's incorrect. It's 15 rooms and a maximum capacity of 17 residents. So I just want to confirm that it's 15 bedrooms, not 17. So a bit about us as a company again. Our company is registered in Essex, but the directors are based in Glasgow. The directors already operate other HMOs in the country and have been running a portfolio of rental property to a high standard, holding landlord registrations in 10 local authorities in Scotland, including Angus. No complaints or issues have been raised by any of the authorities against the directors or the company. We're not a company whose strategy is like Means Limited, who operate HMOs on behalf of the government to house asylum seekers, immigrants. Our sole mission for this property is to house locals affordably. So I know that's a bit of a concern with the objections raised by some of the local residents, that it will attract outside, maybe, it's hard to word, but unfavourable people that would maybe not make local residents feel safe, but that to us is just, we don't want that. Because not only does it look poorly on us, it means that we're going to have more problems to deal with from the residents, and we don't want that. We just want everyone to have a safe and comfortable place to live. So following on, just a bit more about the HMO. I'll just talk through the details of the house. So 64 Millgate Loan, previously known as Floriat Guest House, is a 3-storey traditional sandstone building. The ground floor comprises of a large communal kitchens, shared bathroom and 4 bedrooms. The first floor has a further bathroom and 5 bedrooms, and the third and top floor has 6 bedrooms with a further 2 bathrooms. So there's a grand total of 15 bedrooms, and we propose for 17 occupants. The reason for the additional 2 is just because there's 2 quite large rooms that are 30 metres squared. So we thought that would give the opportunity for, say, a couple that might need the space, that they could have it. There's also a front garden and larger rear garden, along with parking to the right-hand side. The house has access via the front gate and via the driveway, which is shared with 64A. All of the proposed tenants would be fully vetted by industry standard referencing and affordability checks. And we would strive to create a safe and comfortable living space for our tenants and the local community. Frequent checks, including weekly cleaners, will attend the proposed HMO to ensure occupants are complying with house rules and keeping the area tidy. Our aim is to create a homely environment for local individuals that need affordable, fixed price place to live, giving them security. All the bedrooms will come fully furnished, the larger ones with a TV and sofa set for comfortable living. The key to a successful HMO is ensuring that the occupants are of good quality and there is suitable balance of both genders, and that the property is frequently checked on and cleaned. Now just on to the objections. Since the purchase, we have strived to be in frequent communications with our immediate neighbours, being upfront and honest about our plan on how we do business. From the day we got the key, well, we didn't get keys, from the day that we took possession of the property, we spoke to both neighbours on either side and said, you know, here's our plans. Please let us know if there's anything that you're concerned about. And we spent quite a long time chatting with both of them before we'd even done anything. And our interpretation was that they were just quite happy to see the house getting sorted out, because for quite a few years it was attracting quite, well, there was just, from what they told us, there was just constant police calls because kids were breaking in and hurting themselves. We, just following on from what I've written, we met the owners of 64A Millgate Lane, who verbally confirmed to us that the house was at its quietest when it was an HMO, and that they would have no objections returning to that use. The owners just expressed gratitude that we were taking on the project of reviving the building, as they suffered with youngsters breaking in to 64 for many years and having the ordeal of antisocial behaviour caused by the cannabis farm. They, in fact, purchased the property when it was still an HMO and prior to the property becoming a foster care home, as they bought it in June 2016. We also proposed for them to install at shared cost electric driveway gates, the shared driveway access, to provide further security, but we haven't heard back from them on that. It must be pointed out that the objections of the local residents are from those that have lived on the street for a very long time, and throughout that time the house was previously an HMO, so they have, you can't really object to something that was already there, if that makes sense. It's inappropriate to object to the use of the property that was already used in such a way for many years during their residency. Sorry, I didn't realise I'd written that. We had very much hoped that the local residents would be thankful that after years of neglect, a professional has revived the property and in turn the street scene to its former glory. It's fearful what may come of the house if the HMO is not reinstated. The local residents raised concerns of parking and increasing traffic on a quote-unquote busy road. We do not agree with this. Millgate Lane is not a main road and only becomes busy during school pick-up and drop-off times, as is expected for a road that has a school. It is actually the school's parents that cause issues on the road with illegal parking, because there was mentions of the HMO causing people to park illegally. But in my time there renovating the property, all the local residents parked appropriately. I just saw the parents that were causing the issues, unfortunately, because well, just can't control it. The local residents are very respectful of the road. An HMO does not actually require parking provision, especially in this case, and the location of the property being just a 5-minute walk away from Arbroath mainline train station, which has frequent services to Aberdeen, Dundee, Glasgow, Edinburgh, and as far as London. It's also got the Arbroath bus station and is just a 7 minutes walk from the main high street. It's also located within walking distance of the Tesco Extra. Generally speaking, HMO residents wouldn't own a car because it is designed for people who they would just be in the area. Especially where every amenity is within walking distance, as is onward travel to jobs in surrounding areas. The driveway on the property has space for at least 3 vehicles, and there is further on-street parking directly in front of the property for a further 4 to 5 vehicles. The off-street parking area does have the potential to be increased in size should the house require it in the future. An objector noted the funeral director has a requirement for off-street parking, but I've walked past it quite a few times and it has a huge space in front of it on its off-street parking in front of the building. So it has more than sufficient off-street parking in its boundary. In summary, we do not believe that parking would be an issue, as residents of an HMO would not generally require a car. And for those that do, there is sufficient parking both on and off street. The school on Millgate loan existed during the time in which the house was previously granted to be an HMO. Therefore, we don't believe that can be used as a justification for refusal. We do make the promise to the local community of Millgate Loan and our growth as a whole to ensure that all tenants are fully checked and vetted. And should any issues arise, my phone number, email address will be supplied to the immediate locals, and action will be taken to rectify. I do just want to point out as well that I have already done that to the immediate neighbours, so they have got my phone number if there have been any issues. Overall, the objections are largely the same, focusing on parking, congestion, the school, and the types of occupants. We believe to have addressed all of those concerns above. Just a little bit about housing plan and strategy. It is important for a community to have balanced housing for all levels of income and backgrounds. Not all individuals are in a position to rent and furnish a flat/house. So for an example, if you think of a single mum or dad that split up with their partner, husband, wife, having to potentially also now pay for child support and find a way to live alone on a single income, where are they supposed to go? They're not going to be able to afford a flat and the cost of furnishing it. Or even just a young professional starting out in life that is unable to rent a house or flat due to the housing crisis taking place across the country. That is the problem that we strive to solve with our business, providing high quality accommodation to those in the community that otherwise would struggle. The proposed reinstatement of the HMO is in line with this. The council and all councils in the UK in general do heavily promote the reuse of vacant and disused properties to be brought back into the housing stock, and this proposal would provide housing for further 15 to 17 locals, thus alleviating the housing crisis and supporting the council's plan to reduce the number of vacant properties. In conclusion, we ask the committee to grant the HMO licence application for the above reasons, and I'm here if you've got any further questions. I appreciate that was a bit long, but
Thank you very much. Just before we move to questions, there's a couple of points I would just like to clarify. Firstly, for members, the applicant, Mr. Attlee, had mentioned an item that he was asked to read out. If you would like that emailed to you, we have that ready, so we can email that to you and read it yourselves. If you would like a little recess to give you time to read through that properly and digest that, then I will happily consider that. Also, there have been various, and you'll see within the report, various things to do with planning. We are not a planning committee. We are not really interested in parking spaces and things like that, or anything to do with NPF4. That is not the jurisdiction of this committee. We are the licensing, Civic Licensing Committee, and we're looking at solely the licensing aspect of the HMO, not the planning aspect. So just to make that clear for those watching at home, objectors that are here, people online, we're not the planning committee. It's my understanding that a planning application was granted in 2007. Again, as we're not the planning committee, I don't know whether that is still active or if it's still agreed. But again, that's not for us to consider here. It's the licensing element of the HMO, not the planning element of the HMO. So just to make that clear. So would members like the statement that Mr. Attlee referred to email to them to read for themselves, or were they happy with that it was read out as such? You're happy with that? I see nodding heads. So in that case, we'll move to questions from members to the applicant. Councillor Whiteside.
Thanks, Convener, and thanks for your presentation. Obviously a lot of background information there, which is useful, and also agree that having a building like this sitting empty is not the ideal situation. The main concerns were obviously the big list of things from building standards, and we'll get the chance to hear from building standards and question that, but you seemed quite confident that all these conditions would be met? Have you gone as far as getting a structural engineer, for example? Yeah. And the other question was, when you were reading through the type of rooms, am I correct in saying there was only one kitchen?
It's essentially 3 kitchens, which is split in 2. It's a really big room, but it is split in 2. I don't know if have plans been circulated at all. No. Okay. So it's a really large kitchen at the back, which has a standard size kitchen in the first section, and then you move to the second section, and essentially 2 large kitchens, but in 1 room, if that makes sense. And it's got the sufficient cookers and washing spaces. The issue is it's just they want everything indicated on the plans, and that is indicated, but it's all the other things. And I think that I don't want to comment for building standards, but.
Thank you. Councillor Durno.
Thanks, Chair. And thanks, Mr Attle, for your very detailed whole plan. This is obviously my area, and I am very familiar with the building, and it has been a shame that it's been left to go the way it is. My question to you is, we're currently dealing with our housing crisis in our road. Did you not feel that you could maybe open a bed and breakfast or even a youth hostel instead of an HMO? Just wondered, because that is really what we're needing in our road at the moment, and I want to commend you for coming all the way from Essex to help us out with our housing problems, but I think we can kind of cope with them on our own. But if you could answer the question, why couldn't we have hospitality, accommodation, because that is really what we need in our road. Thank you.
Thank you. Just before you answer that question, Councillor Durno, just to remind yourself and everyone else that we're asking questions of the applicant of what's the information is before us, not his business choices as to why didn't you do this or why didn't you do that. We're looking at the application that is before us. Okay, thank you. So it's entirely up to you whether you want to answer that question or not.
I mean, it was previously a hotel. It obviously shut down for reasons. I don't know why. It's not in our business strategy to run hotels. That's quite an intensive and time-consuming endeavour. And to be honest, the house isn't set up to be run as a hotel. There isn't sufficient. Every room would need en suites. I just couldn't see how that would be suitable, and it wouldn't solve the housing crisis issue either, because that would be providing accommodation to third parties outside the community for short stays rather than providing affordable housing to the local community, which I feel like would be more appropriate for the building rather than turning it into maybe a 5-6 bed bed and breakfast. I think that covers what you were trying to say. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. Thank you.
Yeah, just one more thing. I did forget. You said that we're from Essex. The company is based in Essex, but myself and my mum, we live in Glasgow, so we're not too far.
Thank you. Councillor Clark, a question for the applicant on the application.
Hello, Mr Attlee, and I will keep my question absolutely relevant because, there are big difference between this and planning. But just picking up on what you said, and I do appreciate your presentation, it's been quite thorough. We're not interested in what else you want to do. I'm interested in what you've got today. But I have a bit of interesting research that I do on HMOs. It's a big one you're expecting here, and it depends on the area, etc. I'm not a local member, but I do know a bit. The one thing that I would say to you, and you've just kind of mentioned it when you mentioned en-suite being more pertinent to hotels. Well, I would slightly take issue with that because and it's not about what you do today, you've got the rooms that you're suggesting, but in quite a few situations, the en-suites are there because depending on who the people are, that's often expected. But I do agree with you that we have a housing shortage, and it's good to think of different ways to accommodate that or address it. But I would slightly take issue with the ensuite situation, because that is very often in HMOs. It would be slightly smaller, etc., but yours are the one I'm discussing today. So it's not really a question. I suppose we need to align ourselves, you and me, there. But if you want to answer that, that's fine.
So we did consider en-suites in the beginning when we got the house, but plumbers advised that it wouldn't be practical for the actual pipe work, because it's a traditional sandstone building. So with the way the wastewater is, it wouldn't be feasible to have en-suites in the room. So we decided that it was just better just to keep it as shared. And to be honest, yeah. And it is more affordable that way. I often see with HMOs that do have en-suites, they charge an extra 25, 30, 40, 50, even £100 a month for the privilege of having an en-suite versus a non-en-suite. So where we're trying to keep it affordable, having en-suites doesn't necessarily achieve that as efficiently as shared facilities, because the whole point of HMOs for shared facilities. And then, of course, you've got full control over the sanitary situation of the toilets. If they're in the rooms, you don't know how people are keeping them, because you can't necessarily send cleaners into individuals' rooms on a weekly basis, but you can keep the communal areas clean and tidy, so everyone's, got good facilities.
Just before you do it, if you want to come over and speak, you're welcome to. Councillor Clark, if you want to continue.
Just a quickie, just though we're agreed, I get your point there, because you're speaking about the actual plumbing of the building, and it is an old building, so I suppose your point really there, not putting words into your mouth, but your point there is for what's going to be flushed and how you can control that. It's a point well made, thanks.
Councillor Speed.
Yeah, thank you. I've probably got a number of questions with regards to the actual building itself, but I'm going to wait until Building Standards provide their commentary. You mentioned about giving out a phone number and an email address, but what plans do you have in terms of actual building management? Are you looking to provide like a concierge service? Is there going to be somebody on site? I think these things are really, really important, because 15 is quite a large number of people. And I know that the local authority in the past, in terms of supporting whether it be homelessness or other facilities and accommodation with larger numbers, even flatted accommodation with a block of 4 can cause significant concerns at times and an issue. Just with the very nature of people coming and living together. So I just wondered if you could provide a bit more information on that, because if you're based in Glasgow, 2 hours at best, it is very much dependent on traffic as to how quickly and how responsive you could be. So do you plan to have someone within the building?
Yeah, so in regards to, I'll just cover the distance of Glasgow, because I feel like that's a bit of a contentious issue. I don't have a full-time job. This is my full-time job. So if there is an issue that needs my presence, I get in the car and I can come and sort it out. But we did discuss the use of having one of the occupants in the house sort of be the manager and keep on top of all that. And also use a local agent. I don't think I phrased that very well.
He hasn't phrased it well. What he means is that a room, instead of them paying the actual money for the room per month, their role would be to be a management and first call to Harry any problems that are going on.
Keep an eye on everything.
And then Harry can come over and resolve the problem, whether there's an eviction that might need sorting out in terms of someone not following the rules. I think it's important also to note that we are seeking people who are employed and are good citizens. We're not looking at having homeless people in that building, because that's a completely different business and a completely different way of running it. So I just want to be quite clear that I don't want to use the word, I don't want to sort of like downplay people who are homeless or who are struggling, but we are looking for people who need accommodation, who are employed and are looking for a happy, peaceful environment and not looking for trouble. Maybe that's the way to put it. And if there is trouble, they will be evicted.
Thank you. Councillor Speed.
Yeah, just to be very clear, I have absolutely no issues, whether it be homeless people or any other individual or group. But even with the best will, when you bring people together, and it could be an older people's residential area, when there are groups of people living, quite tightly together, that needs managed. And could you just clarify in terms of this, the person that you refer to that would perhaps have a room, that would perhaps be that point of contact? Would they be like a paid, do you mean a paid employee? Is it going to be somebody that has got an actual job description and outline?
We've read through all of the objections and we only got those yesterday. So obviously me and Harry are having conversations about, considering how people are feeling. Everything apart from that, we've always said this is the business plan. We're looking for people, as we've already explained, so that hasn't changed at all. But in terms of having somebody there, we haven't really put the nuts and bolts of how that would work completely together yet. Because originally our plan, because we have other HMOs and we're used to managing in that way, and it is a balance. I think the gender balance is important. It has made a difference where you have a balance of people and that you're vetting them properly. And if there is a problem, we have the power to evict them if they haven't followed the rules. And we would absolutely do that. So the idea of having somebody in a room where whether they get paid full time or whether they're given a room and they don't need to pay rent and they've got another job, but their job is to report back and make sure that everything's run properly, that's a bit of a nuts and bolts conversation. So we're still talking about that. Previously, we haven't had to do that. So in other properties.
Just to add, in our portfolio, we use, although we're not far away anyway, we do use local agents to assist us in managing the properties anyway, and that would be the case with this one. That we were just sort of brainstorming ways that we could maybe make the community feel more comfortable, because we don't want the community to be uncomfortable, which is why we, from the outset, spoke to the neighbours. Because a lot of developers would turn up and do what they want, and they wouldn't care or bother. But we wanted to be on the side of the community.
Thank you. Do I have any other questions for the applicant on their application from members? No. I'll ask one myself. How many, you say that you have other HMOs, how many do you have and how long have you been in the business of running HMOs?
So we have 2 other HMOs. One of them is in Aberdeenshire. We've had that for about 2 years now. And then we've also got one in Dover. So that is quite a distance from where we are, and that's been running since 2022 without any issues.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Brace.
Yeah, just on that one, you obviously operate, your company operates in various parts. Does your company actually have any employees that, are on pay-as-you-earn from your company and paying their national insurance? And I'm asking this just to try and get it in my head, whether your management is going to be more to do with agents helping you in the localities you operate in, or whether you actually have a structure in place already where you are employing people.
So we are still in the growth stage. So we do use a combination of all of my time, mum's time, and local agents, mainly local agents because they know the local area the most. But the long-term plan, when we get to the stage, is to have. We've actually just bought an office in Glasgow. To have a dedicated office and dedicated personnel that would be, essentially their task would be go and check everywhere and you know, keep on top of everything completely.
But I think also to be available on the phone. Harry's always available on the phone. I know he's my son, but he is extremely responsible, and he runs the business brilliantly. I know I'm his mother and I'm biased, but if he didn't do it, I would say so, and we wouldn't be sat here right now. I maybe give some background of myself in the sense of business. Me and my husband are not together anymore, which is why I have relocated my children up to Glasgow. We love Scotland, but previously we set up a radiator company in Essex. It's one of the biggest radiator companies in the country. Following us not being together, I chose to reinvest in a different way, but I've always been in property. So I've done property since my late 20s, not on a developer scale, but I've always been involved in property and renovating and things like that, which is why we decided to set up a family company and invest in property and rentals. So, but we've already explained already to you, I don't want to go any more depth of the actual business that we're doing now, but in terms of business and doing things properly, we have a really good background. And it's important that the community understand that we take our business and how it's managed very, very seriously.
Okay, thank you very much for
Thank
that.
you. Councillor Meeson, did you have a... No. Do any further questions to the applicant on the application before we move on? No. Okay, thank you very much. In that case, I will move to building standards. If you want, you can go back to your seats at the back before I call the next lot through. Thank you very much. Lee, thank you.
Thank you, Convener. I haven't got a huge amount of an update. The applicant has been engaging with us in relation to these points. We're not much further forward, and to be fair to them, the points do look worse than what they are when they're laid out in the fashion that they are in the papers. That's just the way the officers put it together with each of the clauses to make it easy for them. I think for us, again, it's a bit of a timing issue that we need all the information and we need to carry out the inspection. And also there's the an issue with regards to numbers and considering, was it 17 or was it 15? So you've clarified now it's 15. That helps us consider the space standards, for example. And finally, I think the issue with the gable wall, I'm aware that the applicant is now aware that that has been a historic issue with movement on that wall, and they're engaging a structural engineer to check that is safe, or if there's any additional works that have to happen to that wall. It may be that a building warrant is required, for example, to carry out some works. So yeah, from us, again, the applicant is moving the application forward, but we're just not in a position yet to do so.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions for building standards from members? Nope, don't see any hands. Thank you very much. In that case, we'll bring forward the objectors. So the first on my list I have here is Emma Cockle and Ryan Edwards. If you would both like to come forward and make yourselves comfortable. When you want to talk, just push the button, the red light will come on, everyone will be able to hear what you say. And again, I'm just going to clarify that we're not here to consider any planning matters. We are here to consider the licensing element of this application. Okay, so in your own time, when you're ready, please talk us through your objection. Thank you.
Yes, so we live on Osborne Terrace, so we're about 4 doors down from the proposed HMO. From what the applicant was saying, we're in agreement that the house did go to disarray. We've lived there for about 3 years, haven't we? And when we moved in, the house was in disarray. And we agree that it needs to change because it was causing some nuisance, but we need to make sure that it's changed to a suitable dwelling and a suitable what is needed within the community. The applicant talked a lot about having consulted with neighbours. We've never spoken to the applicant. We've not heard any direct plans. We really just found out about it because the work went ahead and a notice was put on the fence. That's how we found out about what was actually going on. We've got a few reasons as to why we object to it. Sort of the main ones we've put in our objection letter was that we are right opposite a primary school and nursery. The primary school and nursery are resource-based, so the most vulnerable children within Angus attend that school. As somebody who works in education and works within social work, I know that to be factual. We've also then got a family contact centre on Hannah Street, which is at the back of, or to the side of, Lady Lone Primary and Nursery. Again, very vulnerable people are accessing that, and we don't know who is going to be placed in that building. We've heard rumours that it was going to be young professionals from the applicants, having spoken to our neighbours, but we've also been told it's farm workers. So it keeps changing as to who's going to be living in the accommodation. We put a lot in about parking as well, but you've told us that that's not for us. What else did we want to put in?
Okay.
You say.
Yeah. So I know a lot of farmers in the area. They have them on static caravans. That was what they told the neighbours originally. We haven't obviously had any conversations with them, but this is all coming through the neighbours. That it was going to be young professionals with the snappy, with the laptops. So that's not really the market here. That's for London. But then it was farm workers, which the farm workers, that would be a luxury for them to be. They're on the statics on site. They work so many hours. I can't see that.
And I think that's the other thing, like when we're talking about housing crisis, which I know there is one in Angus, we also, for the working professional within our Arbroath, 1 to 2 bed flats are affordable. As somebody who is a working person and who has rented before I bought, it was an affordable option compared to when I've lived back in England, where yes, a HMO would have been needed because for one single occupancy it is too much money. But around our Arbroath there are other options than a HMO for professionals.
Also, I think the work carried out, looking on it, it's certainly not been master craftsmen on it, but I think a local developer would have known the area better and probably would have taken a chance on it before now. It sat empty for a long time, which is true, and I think they've maybe taken a chance on it, and it's not really what's required there. I agree with Councillor Durno that it could have went to some sort of hospitality use for the town. I think the whole high street. I mean, every flat in high street, you could have your pick of flats there almost.
I mean, there's 20 million going into Arbroath to rejuvenate it and to make it a nicer place to live. And I think, especially where the property's located, it could have been tapped into the hospitality sector, which then leads to jobs and leads to improvement within the town that way. But, our main concern is we live 3 doors down. We don't know who's going in there. That it's all very well and good saying it's young professionals, but a HMO for young professionals in Arbroath is not a market that is needed. A HMO, in Arbroath would likely house not young professionals. And then we live 3 doors down. There's been no conversation around any of this to us directly, and then on top of that you've got a primary school they're like that, a primary school and a nursery and then a family contact centre, and we don't know who is going to be placed in that house. And it's not just 2 or 3 people, it's 15 people. That's a lot of people.
Also, the councillor mentioned about the en-suites or facilities there. 1 minute they're going to say they're going to take the highest possible candidate for the HMO, so it should have had provisions for that. If they are looking for a classier sort of clientele to come in, and then they've cost cutted a lot on things and not put enough en-suites in and toilets and facilities that it probably could have done with, if that's the market they're going for. And it's all very well saying they'll be slung out in their hook on a Friday afternoon if they're not behaving that week. You can't just evict people nowadays. It's a case of they'll have quite serious rights if they have put in there, you know. And I worry that they're kind of like a hands-off kind of business. They've come in and, you know, from obviously not from the area, but as you pointed out, Glasgow's not just on your doorstep.
And for me, Arbroath is, we're trying to make it a nicer place to live. We're trying to put the infrastructure in. It's not quite there yet. It's on its way. It's being moved forward. But if they can't fill it with local workers, and they have to fill it. You know, it's a HMO. If they do put people in who aren't working, say, and need that extra support for whatever reason that is, where's the infrastructure within Arbroath isn't quite there yet to support it. So you're putting 16 people into a house that there isn't a lot of work going around. There isn't that support that is needed. 15 people, sorry. 15 people is a lot of people to try and find jobs for if the applicants can't fill it with already working people, because there's the option of flats within Arbroath that are affordable to many. And our main one is we don't know who's going in. It's opposite a primary school, it's opposite a nursery, and it's opposite a family contact centre.
Sorry, can I just make the point as well that a lot of neighbours objected as well. The letters were sent in, and I don't know where they've gone.
They didn't get a
response. They didn't get them. We bumped into some neighbours last night and seen if they were coming to the meeting, and they said we didn't get a letter back. We've sent letters in, we've sent objections in, but we never ever got anything back. Never heard back. So there's a lot more than us here today, and there's certainly a couple of guys online, I think, but there certainly was a lot more than what's present today.
Thank you. I'm just being told there that all objections have been received.
Okay.
So they have been received. Is there anything further you would like to say?
I think we've just gone over the same ground, really. I think that's probably major points, I think.
You know, it's a really nice neighbourhood to live in. We've lived there for 3 years now. We're happy there. I think, you know, consideration has to be taken into the residents that are living in that area. And there's a lot of worry and concern about 15 people who are going to be living there, along with the other stuff we're not allowed, that isn't, you know, the parking and stuff. That's a massive issue. But I understand that's not something that can be discussed here. But thank you.
Thanks, Alison.
Just before you go, some of the members may have questions for you. So do we have any questions from members for Emma Cockle and Ryan Edwards before we move to the next objector? No, I see no hands. Thank you very much. Thank you. Can I now please call forward Mr. Robert Johnston, and I believe you're here with your partner Hazel, if you'd like to come forward. So, Mr. Johnston, we have your objection here. Members will see actually 3 of the objections are word for word exactly the same. And so, Mr. Johnson, I give you this opportunity to talk about your objection to the committee. Thank you.
Well, I've stayed in Osborne Terrace since 1981. My partner joined me in 1985, and we've had a successful stay there all those years. Firstly, I'd like to ask the applicant when he ever thought of giving me his phone number or his email address, because I've never heard, hide nor hear of him. So,
unfortunately, you're not here to ask questions. You're here to talk to your
making that
objection
point
to the
anyway,
applicant.
And we feel it's totally inappropriate. He also mentioned the parking at the funeral parlour. That says maybe there's plenty of parking there, but there also, what about the people that attend the funeral? They come along and they park beside us. I know parking is not a problem for this particular meeting, but it can be a bit of a problem as well. So that's another point. But the house has been empty for years, and we understand, excuse me, that years ago the previous owners subdivided rooms and made them smaller to accommodate HMOs. So we don't know what kind of living accommodation they had then. And if that's the case, it was never built for 15 or 16 rooms, that's for sure. But that's as much as I'd like to say, but we're not entirely happy about it anyway, especially with the school being there and the nursery, as Emma has mentioned.
Thank you very much. Do you want to just turn off that microphone?
Oh, yeah.
And just before you go, I'll check to see if any members have any questions for the applicant on their objection. No, in that case, thank you very much. The next on my list is Mr. Andy Swain, who I believe is joining us remotely. If you'd like to just turn on your mic, your video. There we are. Thank you very much. Mr. Swain, just before we move to your objection, I just want to clarify, obviously having read through the objection, the majority of it, a lot of it refers to the planning policy and NPF 4, and just to make absolutely clear that this is a licensing committee, we are not here to consider any planning policies, anything like that. It's purely the licensing element for an HMO. And so with that, I'd ask you to talk to your objection to the committee. Thank you.
Thank you. It's understood on the parking side being planning. I mean, Harry did talk a little bit about it, so I might quickly just mention, I mean, I've lived at the property directly adjacent, 62 Millgate Loan, for the past 7 years. And based on that experience, I do believe the parking impacts associated with it have been understated. I mean, the proposal seeks to accommodate up to 17 residents whilst only providing 3 off-street parking spaces. And the surrounding streets already experience significant parking pressure, particularly during school drop-off and pick-up times. But out with that, pavement parking outside my house is the norm, directly adjacent to it. I mean, my main concern is that any additional parking demand will make the streets less safe, particularly with implications for child safety. Increased on-street parking and vehicle movements around the primary school, reducing visibility for drivers and pedestrians, particularly for young children. So for me, it's a safety issue.
I'm just going to interrupt you there. Just to be absolutely clear, parking is a planning consideration, not a licensing condition or consideration. So just to make it absolutely clear, anything to do with parking spaces, whether there's enough of them or not in on-street parking, that is a planning consideration. That is not a licensing consideration. We are not here to talk about planning. It is purely the licensing element of the HMO.
Yeah, understood. Much like those previous to me, I'm not convinced by the suggestion that the HMO will predominantly attract young professionals. I mean, given that the rooms do not have en-suite facilities, I think that assumption is speculative. It probably shouldn't be relied on when assessing the likely impact of the property on the surrounding area. I'd also like to briefly comment on the suggestion that the accommodation, or the suggestion made by Harry, that the accommodation would be particularly suitable for newly divorced fathers exercising contact with their children. I mean, as a father of 3 daughters, all under the age of 8, who's had either 100% or 50% custody of them at the time following separation, I don't recognise that description. In my experience, regular overnight care of young children requires a degree of privacy and a family-oriented accommodation that this type of shared living arrangement may struggle to provide. I would just like to sort of finish saying that despite living directly adjacent to the property for 7 years, during which no time was it an HMO, and having first-hand experience of these circumstances, the applicant's never spoken to me directly about the proposal or sought my views. So, yeah, I would just like to ask the committee to carefully consider whether the proposed occupancy levels and intended use are appropriate for the location, and whether the impacts on neighbouring residents and child safety have been fully assessed. So that's me. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions from members for Mr. Swain? No? In that case, thank you very much. And we will move on to Mr. Craig Fraser. His objection has been emailed out to members, and he is joining us remotely as well. Good afternoon now, Mr. Fraser. Again, just before I give you the opportunity to speak, I just want to make it just absolutely clear we are not here to discuss or consider anything to do with planning. This is purely licensing. And with that, the floor is yours, Mr. Fraser. Thank you.
Yeah, noted regarding the planning aspects. Firstly, yeah, thanks for giving me the opportunity to attend remotely. Apologies for not attending in person. Currently travelling overseas this week, so I couldn't attend. Bit of background about myself. Craig Fraser, myself, my wife and my family have lived in 64A, Millgate Loan, the detached property, which is immediately next door to the property that has the application. We have a shared driveway, shared access with the property next door. I live there with my wife. I've got one of my sons still lives at home, and we often have my granddaughter there. So we feel that we would be greatly impacted by this, particularly given the shared driveway and access and egress, and having an additional 17 residents immediately next door. I think with comings and goings, cars coming up and down the drive, I believe it can significantly impact myself. Particularly, it's quite a steep drive. I've touched on, I know the parking is the public parking, but for 17 people, I believe the average person amongst that, you could assume they would have at least 50% would have cars and access in the property. So I believe that's a significant impact on us, coming and going, potential noise. Yeah. Also, given the fact we've got quite often got my young granddaughter at the property. I did put in my letter about the public street parking, noted, so I won't comment on that. I've also got concerns about antisocial behaviour and the potential impact that can have. We've lived in the property for 10 years, so we're very happy there. As mentioned by the previous sort of people who went before me, I think the antisocial behaviour, I don't believe it's a property for young professionals. I don't think that's a realistic business model in Arbroath, maybe elsewhere, and the impact living across the road from a primary school, I think really needs to be considered. But generally, myself and my wife are genuinely concerned about this. 17 people next door, disruption, potential antisocial behaviour. It's causing concerns with us. I would just like to some clarity on the submission that was made by Harry. Harry's quite right, and I've had discussions with Harry, and communication with him. I just want to. I believe there was some inaccuracies, and I don't want to get involved in a tit for tat, but I'm just make a statement here. I've stayed there for 10 years, so there was a previous HMO when we first moved in there. There was never more than a handful of people stayed in there. So there's never been up to 17 people, more than a handful since we've been there in the last 10 years. It's never been a foster home in the last 10 years. There's a family lived there that had foster children, 2 kids that were fostered. But it's never been a foster home. So I believe that's inaccurate. The cannabis farm, it was implied there was a cannabis farm, which is correct. And the police did rape it. I think it was implied there was a cannabis farm statement several years. No, 6 months. So I believe the statement was slightly inaccurate. I have had discussions with Harry, and I just want to live my life in peace. That's really what I'm from Arbroath. I've lived in Arbroath all my life. We have had discussions with Harry. And as I say, don't believe I've ever been advised that there was going to be a large-scale HMO. I knew the property was getting renovated. He may have had that discussion with the neighbours on the other side, but not directly with myself or my wife. We knew it was being renovated, but there's been no detailed discussion about it being a large-scale HMO. The discussion, the offer of putting electric gates, I think it was actually me that mentioned I was talking about putting gates, and we discussed briefly about the costs of it, but it was never a proposal to me, so I believe that was inaccurate. Yeah, really, that's all I would like to say. Myself and my wife, I've got concerns about this. We see ourselves as good sort of local members of the community that enjoy living in the area and have similar concerns with that all our neighbours have put forward. That's all I've got to say this morning.
Thank you very much. Do any members have any questions for Mr. Fraser? No, I see no hands. Thank you very much, Ms. Fraser. You're welcome to continue to watch the meeting, but thank you. So we'll now invite the applicants, if you'd like to come back forward, and we'll give you the opportunity to sum up on your application. Just to be clear as well, it was agreed that the occupancy would be 15. That was heard and accepted by building standards, so it's not 17, it's 15, just to clarify that point there. Okay, so Mr. Attlee and your mum, your opportunity to sum up to your application. Thank you.
Yeah, so just to start off, it's sort of been asserted by the opposers that Arbroath is like is a very small town that doesn't have sufficient professionals or working people to warrant an HMO this size, but the population of Arbroath is 23,500. That's not a small town to me, and to my recollection, Arbroath is the biggest town in Angus, so that would be the centre for jobs in Angus as a whole. And just to clarify as well, a few of the opposers assumed that we said we would only house young professionals. We didn't say that. We said we would be looking for high quality working people with a balanced age and gender.
I think it's character. When we say high quality, we mean good character.
Yeah, when you rent property out, and this is why it's quite helpful to have local agents, because they often know who the troublemakers are already, because they've already dealt with them. The character is really the main thing, and we would rather have a room sit empty than fill it with somebody who's going to cause us problems. It's just, well, the community would then cause us problems by complaining, which isn't nice for anyone. And on that point, in Scotland, the tenancies do stipulate that if you do break the rules of your tenancy, that you do need to leave within 28 days.
After being served an eviction notice.
So we would be adhering and using those powers if there were any issues with the people in there in regards to the neighbours having issues or any other reasons. I do just also want to point out that one of the opposers said that they live 3 to 4 doors down, which sounds like they're really close, but Millgate Lane is quite spread out, where there's, so 64 is quite a large property, it's on quite a large plot, and then the 2 properties adjacent to it are also quite spread out, so they're not really, it takes a minute or two to walk down there, and for that reason, I didn't feel like it was appropriate to go door knocking on every person on the street.
Also, I'd like to point out that when I've been out there in the gardens, Harry's been predominantly there over the last 6 months.
Almost
Every single resident who's walked past has smiled, hello, oh yes, you're the new owners, yes, we're the new owners, this is what we're doing. So we've been extremely open for anyone to come and say, what's going on, what are you doing, you know, and we have been completely open about what it is that we're doing, and we certainly both had conversations with both neighbours for quite some time. It was outside the house, you know, more impromptu rather than can we have a meeting, explaining that we were doing it as an HMO and did they have a problem with that. So we opened, before any money was invested, we opened that to the people who would be directly affected. Obviously, we apologise for not necessarily going across the road and introducing ourselves to other people, but where people have walked past in so many occasions, we expected that people would come and say hi. You know, I think actually Pauline on the other side, she actually walked past and then came in and had a chat with us and sat on the in the front garden. And we had quite a long chat with her about what we were doing and also her background. I'll move on.
The opposers speak of sort of, I'm not putting words in their mouth, but to summarise, it sounds like what they're sort of getting at is Arbroath is a lovely town. They're trying to rejuvenate it. So are we, but please allow us to do that. You know, I'm not going to go into planning per se, but they say, oh, you know, you should have done something else with it. But that's not what we're here to decide. I think
also if you're trying to improve, you've got the investment and you are trying to improve areas, just to say that property is actually sat on market. It sat for months and months.
Well, it was on.
Harry, I think Harry knows the detail.
I was going to get into that point a bit later on. So another one of the opposers said that they'd lived there since 1981 and their partner shortly after, and said that he was happily living there for all those years, which would then include the 10 years that it did run as an HMO, and he didn't mention any issues with that. Yeah, I've covered that point. Obviously, this proposal would assist in the housing crisis. The opposers commenting on needing hotel accommodation doesn't solve that at all, because that's not providing housing to the local community, whereas this does. And just on 64A, Craig was mentioning that the HMO, when they moved in, didn't house that many people, but I would point out that he did move in sort of when it was drawing to a close from the looks of it, because I think about 6 months later it did become a foster home, so it's more than likely that prior to him moving in there were in the region of 15 people in there. So he said that we didn't explain to them specifics on the scale of the HMO. Equally, they didn't ask. We said, this is what we're doing. Do you have any queries, any questions? And they were just like, look, we're really happy that it's getting done because we've had so much problems with antisocial behaviour, with kids breaking in, and the since
drugs.
Well, yeah, and the cannabis.
I think that's the worst thing. It's awful.
You know, and since we've got cameras up at the property, and since we have started works, there hasn't been any issues. The only problems we've had is people nicking our tools.
Yes.
From outside.
We've had 2 ladders taken.
Yeah, we've had some ladders taken, but other than that.
But we haven't had the young people coming and breaking in and causing those problems, which
we're really thankful.
You know,
for.
we had quite a lot of conversations with the neighbours about that and how awful. And I said, you know, if it was me, I'd feel so uncomfortable about that too. You know, they're going on to possibly accessing their driveway and things like that. So, you know.
And just on that point as well, the shared driveway with 64A is not the primary way of accessing the property. You'd only use it if you've got a car, and we've stated that most residents in an HMO wouldn't have a car, and if they did, there's 3 spaces, not 15, so it's not going to be everyone using that. The main access is via a gate, which is accessed via the pavement at the front of the house on Millgate Lane. So the foot traffic wouldn't be through the shared driveway. It's actually more inconvenient to go that way to get to the front door. And just another point was raised about the size of the rooms. So I think building standards should be able to confirm this based on the plans we've got, that all of the rooms do comply with spacing standards in terms of the actual size of the rooms. and most of them are 2 or 3 times the minimum size. So the minimum is 10 square meters. I think only 3 or 4 are 10 and a bit, and then the rest of them are sort of 15, 20, 30 square meters. So it is, you know, they're big rooms.
And just on the point of, it was sort of more of a mention of the type of person and what we could offer in terms of there being perhaps a family that has separated. If you're on a low income, we're not talking about somebody who's earning, you know, perhaps as a training to be an architect, or, you know, that sort of level of professionalism where you could be on 40,000 plus a year. You know, we're talking about somebody who literally would really struggle to rent a flat, pay council tax, utility bills, cost of living is doubling. You know, it's getting so high, even just food bills, and then having to furnish and manage buying things for their children, or perhaps having to pay maintenance to their children. So I think I just wanted to make it clear that that is something that I think we've had.
I think the main point is different income levels have different means, and the average worker in your high street does not have the means to support 2 homes, 2 families. You know, 2 homes.
Or it takes them a while to maybe get onto that level, and then therefore for a couple of years they've got somewhere that is affordable.
They know what they're paying. But
without going into the nitty gritty, but I think there'd been quite a big concern about.
We've got HMOs, and I frequently have single dads message me and say, I've just split up, I've got my kids, is it okay if they come round, you know, once or twice a month to visit me, but I just need somewhere to live that I know what the cost is going to be, because I don't have enough spare to rent something else.
And the house being empty.
We obviously, just to sort of remind everyone that the house was empty from around 2018 up until, well, even now is technically empty. So.
But it was marketed for sale, but nobody bought it.
Oh, that was, sorry, that was the point.
And I think that's a very important point, that, and again, nobody wants to upset any local people, but the house, nobody else bought it. It was in such a terrible state. When I walked in, and you needed gloves. It was so bad, and it's not really. And I mean, to be honest, I wasn't really surprised that anyone bought it.
Yeah, I mean,
it really was bad. I mean, there were no keys.
I did.
We had to break in to get in.
I did bump into a few locals that had considered the idea of taking on the project, but they decided not to. And obviously, in the years that it was marketed, it didn't go to a local. So trying to say that a local should have taken it and done something else with it, they had the opportunity to, and they didn't. And sometimes you do require outside investment.
And it did require a considerable amount of money spent. I do apologise.
I'm being prodded by legal here. Within your summing up, we're not looking to introduce any new information. It's literally to sum up what's that you've heard, respond to some bits you've had, and just a summary, really.
That's pretty much it. We've done.
we just wanted to try and mainly cover what the opposers had queried. Apologies if any new information was accidentally.
That's fine. But just wanted to
provide.
If you're happy that you've said what you want to say, good.
That summarises our position. We just want high quality HMO. Everyone, you know, all the locals to be happy and you know, find a way forward to get this house back into the housing stock.
Okay.
Thank you
very much. Before we move on to discussion, I have a request for a comfort break. So we're going to have that. Is 10 minutes sufficient for everyone, or do you want a little bit longer?
10 minutes.
We'll go with 10. Okay. And so we'll see you back in 10 minutes. Thank you.
If you could pause the live stream, please.
Great, thank you very much. Welcome back, everyone. So we've heard from the applicant, we've heard from the objectors, and we've heard the applicant sum up. We've also heard from Building Standards. So I shall open the floor up to discussion from members. So I'll start with Councillor Speed and then Councillor Whiteside.
Yeah, thank you, convener. So for me, there's two parts to this. I do have concerns that we have not seen enough in terms of the layout and in terms of the building. And, you know, that would be kind of supported by building standards and Ms Tom's input as well, that there's still information to come. I think we did start to get very much into the detail of who would be going in there. And, you know, I just want to be absolutely clear that for me, if it's meeting a need in terms of housing, whether that be for young people, older people, homelessness, you know, students, workers, whatever the case may be, my issue isn't about who goes in, it's how it's managed. So I just want to be really clear on that. And, you know, I think there's probably about 15, 16, 17 of us here today in the chamber. And I think if we were, you know, we'd probably all like to think of ourselves as being, you know, good tenants or the ability to be good tenants in somebody else's property. But it is a lot of people. And, you know, I think you would all get a bit kind of annoyed at me if my hair was clogging the shower in the morning and you couldn't get in the shower on the way to work. And, you know, it doesn't have to be that the issues are spilling over out into the community. It could be how these issues in terms of, you know, if a plumber needs called out or if something breaks within the property. I think that's kind of my concern around, you know, just how that will be managed. You know, it doesn't have to be those bigger issues that might spill out in terms of antisocial behaviour. It could be the day-to-day run-ins because it is a large number of people to accommodate. So I think for me at this stage, I don't feel in a position, based on the lack of information and, yeah, not quite satisfied that the management plan is going to be able to support the sustainability of this at this time.
Thank you, Councillor Speed.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Whiteside.
Thanks, convener. From my point of view, it's very, very simple. We've been told very clearly by building standards we don't have the information to make the decision. So regardless of anybody's opinions on the application or whether or not we think the business model will work in Arbroath, that's irrelevant. We don't have the information. We can't make a decision today, and so that's as simple as it gets, I think.
Thank you. Councillor Durno.
Yeah, I just want to sort of echo my ward colleagues, Lewis's points. I remember when we've had issues in this area before with in a similar house in that street as well. I could commend the applicant for their vision. I see what they wanted to do, but I just don't think it's the right place and the right time. And as Beth has said, the building standards is not there at the moment either. And if I had to quote for any legal things, I would say the safety and security of persons likely to occupy it and the possibility of undue public nuisance is my main concern. And that's my point. Over. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, convener. I think this morning and this afternoon, all of us have spent a lot of time on this and given it a lot of due consideration, but you still wouldn't be able to decide, and that's what this group's all about. So I just haven't got enough information despite all that discussion. So I think in the interest of everybody in fairness and what I'm supposed to be here for, I wouldn't be able to make that decision right now. I haven't got enough information.
Thank you. Any other comments from members? Councillor Nicholl.
Thank you, convener. These type of properties are good for cities with universities or teaching hospitals. I don't think it's suitable for Arbroath. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Meehan.
Yeah, my view is the same as Councillor Whiteside. I don't know why we continue debating it. If we don't have the information, if we don't have all the information required, we should just be deferring it. Thank you.
Councillor Brace.
Well, I'm exactly the same. Whether or not this property is suitable, etc., we cannot make a decision on the information currently available to us.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I would have to agree that I don't think there's quite enough information here right now for us to make that informed decision. And so I'm open to invitations for motions from anyone. Otherwise, I'm happy to propose one myself, in which I would propose that we defer this application as we did with the previous one, for a time period that would be sufficient for, I'll probably refer to Bill and Sanders for an idea on timescale as to how long they might expect, because I don't want to bring them back to the next one if that's not going to be enough time, and then it then gets deferred again.
In terms of timescales, convener, again, we'd have no issues turning it around internally quite quickly. It would depend on things like the structural engineer's letter, how long that takes, any implications from there.
That could be subject to the approval. Councillor Scott.
Thanks, convener. I was just going to put my hand up to bring a motion, but you got there before me, so I'm happy to second.
Okay, so my motion is that we defer this until such time as there's sufficient information to be brought back to committee. Are you happy to second that, Councillor Scott? Yeah, thank you. Are there any variations to that and any amendments? Are we all agreed on that?
Agreed.
We're just going to. Yes. Thank you very much, everyone. So we'll move on to our last item of business, which is item number 6, a new application. This is report number 16826 with regards to late hours catering for Asda Stores Limited, Asda Express PFS 108 North Esk Road, Montrose. And I'm going to just get an update from the committee clerk with regards to that.
Convener, just to let you know that the application's been withdrawn by the applicant. The reason that the premises now closes at or before 11 p.m. and does not open until after 5 a.m. and there's no intention to go back to 24-hour trading. So therefore the application's withdrawn.
There we are. Thank you very much. Then that concludes the business for today. Thank you very much for everyone's attendance. If I can ask the elected members just to stay online.